Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special Prog Report interview. We have the great Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull here. Ian, how are you?
All about the same as yesterday, but at my age, that's the best I can hope for.
Wonderful. Well, joining me is Jeff Bailey here, who's a big, longtime Jethro Tull fan, and we wanted a chance to get to ask you a few questions. There's a new album coming out on March 7th called Curious Ruminant. Another fantastic record, your third in almost 3 years. Talk about what's been so inspirational for you over the last few years that has given you this creative kind of renaissance, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it seems pretty exciting.
You look back at the history of the most recent recordings, then there's Elegy, which was released in 2022. That actually began, the first recordings were done in 2017, but due to the pressure of touring concerts, and then COVID, it didn't get finished until 2022. And then the next one was recorded and released a year later. And in May of last year, I started work on what was to become Curious Ruminant. But we have to remember also in the new millennium, there have been many, many solo records, live recordings, compilation albums, remixes, reissues, all that stuff has been a constant stream of material for the Jethro Tull fans who want to dip into their pockets and shell out some dosh to buy something either new or reworked. So there's been a constant stream of material. When it comes to doing a new album, it's just whenever the time is right, as the time is right, the visitation of the muse won't get turned down. Preferably, preferably she should book an appointment in advance, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes just a surprise encounter, and you have a little notion planted in your head, an idea for something, a song or a title, and I think then and now, by then I mean in 1970 or now, when you have that germ of an idea, it's good to get on with it. Don't sit fiddling with it. Just get on with it. Time is too short, and you always have to be aware that you may not be around to do something with it 6 months later or a year later. So get on with it while you can. And at the moment, my mental and physical capabilities allow me to think about not only a new album, but a whole series of tours. I mean, I'm just signed off on some to a UK tour next April, May, and with other things to come in 2026. And so you've got to feel a little bit confident about being able to do that. And clearly, with each passing year, there is a finite horizon when it comes to having those mental and physical capabilities. It will
Yeah.
it will draw to a close sooner or later. Hopefully later rather than sooner, but I'm prepared for the worst.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It seems that the fan bases have been as interested as ever to add on to what you were just saying with all the stuff that's available and the new albums. If you with social media, this has to be a whole new world that you're now getting into. Do you pay attention to that? Are you still interested in what the fans are saying and getting those comments back in 2025?
Um, I'm as uninterested as I was back in 1968, 69, because I think there's a degree to which it's nice if someone, gives you a little smile or asks for an autograph at the right time. But I don't depend on it, and I certainly don't want to be smothered with affection or congratulatory communications from people. I'm embarrassed by it. And if people want to be negative and nasty, well, I haven't got much time for that either. So I've never,
Yeah.
although we have a presence obviously on social media on a number of platforms, which professionally speaking, we are rather obliged to do. But in terms of personal communication, I have absolutely no interest in reading people's um, twitterings on whatever it's called these days, whatever Battery Man calls it these. Oh, X, isn't it? It's called X. And so it's all of these dependencies that people have seemingly on social media, particularly when, people who are blogging or in some way making their presence felt, they they count the happiness of their days in how many followers they have gained, and they fall into desperate senses of malaise and self-loathing because the number of followers is reduced.
Mm.
It can really play havoc with your life if you take too much
Yeah,
notice of what people think of you. Just have the confidence in your own ability and your own sense of who you are, and don't rely on other people to somehow bolster some insecurity or lack of confidence. It's not good for the soul. So no, I don't
Absolutely.
personally do social media. There are other people who do it on my behalf in the sense of making sure people are aware of what's going on, but not to and fro with conversations, whether they're upbeat and friendly or negative and destructive. I just haven't got, really time or inclination for that kind of discourse.
Yeah.
But not that I'm old-fashioned so much as because I do. I'm at this. I'm at the front of in terms of operating programs and software in terms of the things that I really do need to do, musically
Mm.
speaking. I'm using, advanced stuff in terms of digital recording. And when it comes to photography, for example, I mean, I'm up there with the state of the art in terms of what I do and delivering finished product to people. So, I mean, I think I'm not a person who lives in a sublime dislocated period of either analog or old-fashioned values. I'm very much in touch with what's happening today, including what's happening in terms of news and current affairs and politics and religious strife and all the other things that beset our increasingly crowded planet.
Mm. Well, Ian, just linking on from that, I was reading the other day something you said around about the time that the JTull.com album came out, where you talked about using high-tech processes to make low-tech music. Do you want to tell us a bit about how does the Jethro Tull album come together in 2024 or 2025? Because you have a sort of core active band, but do they work together, or is it working separately, or a combination of that?
Well, essentially, nothing really changes a lot. Most of what's on this record and most of what's on the previous two records began with, a bunch of guys in the rehearsal studio playing their instruments in real time and working out the arrangements and parts to record. But the then slots into place the more um, deliberate process of adding final vocals and flutes and other overdub bits and bobs and the mixing and mastering and all of that becomes a lot more technical and a lot more objective. But I like a song to begin in an organic way where, it comes from an idea that I have, and maybe I make a simple demo or I write some
Hmm.
um, guideline notes to the other guys as to what it's about, so that they come into rehearsal with a good idea of what it is that we're going to do. And so, the process is, I think, very much the same as it always was. And even though I use um, the digital recording
Hmm.
process with seemingly unlimited tracks at my
Hmm.
disposal, I tend only to ever use, in reality, maybe 20 or 24 tracks, just like I
Yeah.
did in the days of analog recording.
Yeah.
I tend to employ what is called destructive recording. In other words, rather like analog tape, if you go over to record on top of something, it is gone forever.
Okay.
Those previous takes have vanished. They can't be recovered. And I like that. I like to make decisions. So when I record digitally, I know the instant I've made a mistake or done something not not very good, I stop, wind back, drop in again, and whatever I did is gone. I don't want to
Hmm.
keep it. I don't keep lots of useless takes of bad music. It seems utterly
Yeah.
pointless to do that. It's just
Right.
more stuff to have to go through later. But other musicians have got used to, and dare I say, maybe got lazy about making decisions along the way, and they want to do, keep 10 takes of drums. And the drum tracks, could have 8 or 9 or 10 different tracks devoted just to drums, times 10 takes.
Yeah.
It's so much to have to go and listen to. I don't want to be in the room when that's going on.
Yeah.
I just haven't, I'd rather go and, God, I think I'd rather do social media than sit in the room with the drummer, going through all the outtakes, looking for the perfect one.
Uh,
So
That's great.
go ahead.
and linking in with that, I suppose I mean, there has been a lot of interest in the reissues, and a lot of that is looking back over the past and the history. Are you very closely connected to that, or is that something that kind of comes to you as a sort of partially packaged thing that you then approve, or how closely you're involved in that?
Well, it differs from re-release to re-release, but sometimes I'm confident about whoever's doing any remixing or surround sound mixing that I'm quite happy just to listen to work in progress and sign off on it at the end. Sometimes if there's a lot
Hmm.
of material in a booklet, to go with the album, then I will be involved with that to a greater or lesser degree. But I'm very happy for other people to shoulder the burden of that because my job, I felt, was done when I did the original recording.
Hmm.
And although I can accept that there are different ways to present that, particularly with surround sound or Dolby Atmos and different formats for different people's preferences, whether it's streaming, downloading, or purchasing a vinyl version of it, then I mean, all of those things are choices you give to people, which I think is appropriate for this day and age, that people have and probably expect to be able to choose a format or formats that are their preferred way of listening. So all of those things are part and parcel of re-releases and box sets and all the rest of it. And, yes, of course I am involved and sometimes heavily involved. Sometimes I'm there really as a chairman of the board. I come in for a meeting just to sound important and then sign the annual accounts.
There you go. I want to make sure we talk about the new album, Curious Ruminant, again out on March 7th. Um, Talk about the concept for the record and how you approached the writing for this one. What were you trying to go for on this album?
Well, it began with a piece of music that my son sent to me from an old computer, the computer that we'd dedicated for use for recording. And he was about to trash it and smash up the hard disk because it was just an old computer lying around his house. And but he came across some various files. He thought he'd better check with me to make sure that um, I didn't want them. And one of the things he sent me was a track that I immediately recognized as having made back in 2007 as a demo for a piece of music I proposed to play with Hari Prasad Chaurasia, the Indian classical flautist, I mean, traditional bamboo flute flautist, that we were going to hopefully play together on some concerts in India and Dubai. But he decided he preferred to do a traditional Indian raga, so we ended up playing that. And this piece of music, which had been recorded with as a demo with Andrew Giddings, our then keyboard player, and me, just the two of us, it sat doing nothing until May of last year when I thought, wow, this is amazing duet for two flutes, and it had lots of empty space in the demo where unfinished ideas, other people's solo and whatever could be interspersed with the flute themes, and it was 18 minutes long. So I edited it down and kept Andy's original keyboard parts and re-recorded some flutes and bass, guitars, drums, cajon. And the first thing I did actually was to write the lyrics. When I heard it, I thought I'm going to write lyrics and then see how I can put all that together. And and it was the first piece that I worked on for the new album. I didn't complete it because I was waiting for the availability of some of the other guys in the band to perform their parts. But it was the first one that I began work on. The second one was, I think, Curious Ruminant, which in a way set a tone for the album in describing my daily habit of acquiring some new knowledge that I didn't have yesterday. And having acquired some raw data onto this seemingly infinite cranial hard disk up here, I like to mull it over, to think about it, put it into perspective in terms of my own life and time. So that's a daily habit of mine, is to try and learn some new stuff every day. And sometimes that might could figure in something that becomes a song lyric. Other times it's just for the sake of having the knowledge and giving it consideration and putting alongside the rest of that mental encyclopedia, cerebral encyclopedia. So that was the kind of principle of that title track, and in a way became symbolic of the songs on the album as a whole. So whilst it's not a concept album, the songs do feel to me like they belong on the same record. They are they are they're comrades walking hand in hand. They feel like they belong on the same record, and that's something I like to feel. I had that with Aqualung. That wasn't a concept album either, but the songs felt like they belonged in two different kind of ways, in two different batches of songs. They felt like they belonged together. And indeed, they were drawn together by being separated into side one and side two on what then was a vinyl album only. And also in terms of the artwork and the liner notes and the presentation, it gave it more of a feeling of being a cohesive album than it might otherwise have had. But it still didn't make it a concept album. And this, too, is not a concept album. It is a collection of songs. But they're songs that seem to belong in the same time and space, even on vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that strikes me even over those last three albums, is that you take that kind of rumination, the source, whether it's from the Bible or in the Zealot gene or the Norse mythology and rock flute, and relate that to current issues and thinking, which I think is it's a very unusual kind of approach, but it's fantastic.
Well, yeah, on those two records, on the Zealot Gene and Rock Flirt, it was knowledge that I largely did not have. So having decided on making a record on a particular broad topic, then I had to go out and acquire that knowledge. So that was a deliberate, investigative piece of work and daily effort to try and acquire the material. But this album is not researched in advance at all. In fact, although there might have been some checking of facts and some information, but most of it was really off the top of my head. I mean, I wasn't acquiring, I wasn't glued into Wikipedia or other sources of information in order to do some preparatory research to write these songs. They just came from up here and from in here. They were just much more personal and perhaps more evocative of thoughts, impressions, and some opinions that I already have. But I'm careful not to preach, and I don't want people to think that I'm telling them what they should believe. But it's nice to give people the ammunition to form their own thoughts, if not conclusions, at least steer them in a certain path as a result of giving something a bit more time and credibility as a topic.
Ian, I think that's our time with you. I know you're really busy and there's a lot of people that want to get a chance to talk to you. So appreciate your time, man. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for continuing to make new music. Congratulations on the new album, Curious Ruminant. Again, available on March 7th. A couple of tracks out now, the title track and Tipu House, both fantastic. Really cool animation on the videos, by the way. Really neat stuff.
Nothing whatsoever to do with me. It's a person, a very accomplished video maker that the record company came up with, and he gets a relatively free hand. I mean, I don't impose myself too much on what he does. I mean, there's a couple of little things along the way. I'll say, actually, that doesn't work, or this is incorrect as a reference point. But basically, he has
Yeah.
a free hand, and I think the end result is quite different in terms of video making, but it's not the way I would do it for sure, but then that's part and parcel of working with somebody else. They bring a different vision to
Mhm.
something that, after all, is a piece of promo material. It's
Right, exactly.
ultimately it's there to serve a purpose and present an idea of a song that people will, on first hearing, be um, hopefully amused by. So yes, but I can't take credit for it, or indeed, if you didn't like it, I can't take the blame either.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Have a great
That's
rest of your
okay.
day.
Yeah, same to you.
Thank
Great
you.
to talk
Bye.
to you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye
Bye.
now.
Bye. Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all our socials and progreport.com, and we'll see you all again real soon. Thanks.